Revealed, how a hidden choice to save a dog reshaped my life after 10 days in crisis. The day was dreary, much like how Jake felt inside. His heart weighed heavy as he drove through the fading light of the Midwest evening. Staring straight ahead, clouds painted the sky in troubled shades of gray, reflecting his own hopelessness. Just last week, he had a stable job at the local garage, his hands grease-stained but his pride intact. Now, at 30, he was unemployed, stumbling through each day searching for a glimmer of hope. As he turned onto an old dirt road, his headlights flickered against something small and trembling at the roadside. A stray dog, thin and hunched, was soaked from the rain, shivering against the coming chill. The sight stopped him cold. Something deep inside stirred as memories of childhood laughter filled his mind. Tightly gripping the steering wheel, he felt an urge to save the creature. After all, hadn't his father said that character matters more than money? Without a second thought, he pulled over. The pup's large, scared eyes met his, igniting a flame of compassion within him. He stepped out of the car, the crunch of gravel breaking the eerie stillness. As he approached, the dog cowered, but Jake knelt, offering out a trembling hand. "It's okay," he whispered. "You're safe now." Something magical happened at that moment. The stray found a flicker of trust, slowly inching closer. Jake's heart swelled, a warmth spreading through him as he scooped the dog into his arms, naming the pup Charlie. Felt right. For the next 5 days, Jake threw himself into nursing Charlie back to health. He fed him scraps from the kitchen, found a warm blanket, and showered him with affection. In return, Charlie taught him about loyalty, courage, and hope. Each wag of Charlie's tail pushed Jake's spirits higher, reminding him of days spent as a boy, chasing dreams with his father by his side. But the laughter of those days was dimmed by financial stress. Every family gathering was a battle zone. He could feel the tension as relatives whispered behind his back, labeling him a failure for his working-class struggles. "Maybe it's time for a real job, Jake," they would say, fishing for validation he no longer had. Each encounter felt like salt in an open wound, feeding the anger that simmered in his core. He felt his identity slipping away. Charlie's wagging tail was the raw and honest love he craved, and in that bond, Jake found solace. But just when he started feeling hopeful, disaster struck. His old car broke down, leaving him stranded in the middle of nowhere. In that moment, betrayal cut deep as a friend, once considered trustworthy, took advantage of his vulnerability. Jake felt the sting of isolation creep back in, filling him with a whirlwind of emotions: anger, frustration, and a grave disappointment. Memories of his father's tough love flooded back. "You've got to stand on your own 2 feet, his father would remind him, but all Jake felt now were the expectations weighing him down. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Facing his emotions and the harsh reality of survival, Jake found himself at a breaking point. Determined to push through, he drove home, stewing in silence. Each turn felt like a reflection of his own life, a maze of setbacks bridging the gap between his dreams and his daily struggles. A conversation with his father loomed ahead, a confrontation with the stubborn truths of the past. Would he find the courage to break free from the expectations that had shackled him for far too long, as he cradled Charlie in his arms, staring into those unyielding brown eyes? He saw not just the puppy he had saved, but a fragment of himself, a flicker of hope yearning for healing. What would his journey with Charlie teach him? As the last light of day dipped below the horizon, an undeniable question lingered. Could he reshape his life as he had done for that little dog? Jake parked the car in the driveway, the crunch of gravel beneath the tires echoing in the silence that enveloped him. He could already see the faint outline of his father's figure in the window, an unyielding presence that always demanded achievement and resilience. The weight of unspoken expectations hung heavily in the air around him as he stepped out, Charlie nestled in his arms. "What happened to your car?" His father's voice cut through the stillness before Jake even reached the front steps. It broke down. "I'll figure it out, Dad," he replied, his tone steadier than he felt. The truth was, he felt adrift, lost in the chaos of life's misfortunes. "Figuring it out doesn't pay the bills, son." His father's words were sharp, but there was concern beneath the firmness. Jake swallowed hard, the irritation swelling like a balloon inside him. The judgment was as familiar as the framed photographs lining the walls, a gallery of accomplishments he could never seem to add to. Just then, Charlie wriggled in his arms, his tiny body warm and alive. That simple motion helped tether Jake to the present. He set the pup down gently on the porch. "This is Charlie," he said, attempting to divert the conversation. "Another dog?" His father raised an eyebrow, disapproval flickering briefly before he quickly concealed it. "You know you can't afford. Not everything is about money, Dad," Jake interrupted, his voice rising, the fight kicking in. "I saved him from the road. He needed me." The silence that followed was thick, each second stretching like an elastic band prepared to snap. "You can't keep ignoring reality," his father finally said, his voice more somber now. Reality. Wasn't he at the root of his frustration? Jake had felt the harshness of it creeping into his mind ever since he lost his job. Now he was struggling with the notion of his own worth, haunted by both his father's standards and society's expectations. The anger simmered, yet somehow Charlie's innocent gaze pulled Jake back from the edge. Maybe I need to redefine what success looks like," he thought aloud, half hopeful, half scared of the change that might come with that statement. After a heavy dinner filled with stilted conversation, Jake retreated to his room. Charlie curled up at his feet, a warm anchor in the storm inside his heart. In the dim light, Jake watched his new friends sleep and thought about everything that had changed in the past week. Just a few days ago, he was a man afraid to act. Now he was learning to care and take responsibility for another life. Grabbing his phone, Jake opened the Notes app. He listed the things he wanted to achieve, not just work-related goals, but personal ones. "Find a job that supports me and Charlie," he typed. "Learn to be proud of who I am," he added, heart racing. Each entry breathed fresh hope into his weary soul, pushing against the dark shadows in his mind. As he finally closed his eyes, something hovered at the edge of his consciousness, the idea that perhaps he was more than just his job, more than his failures. Charlie nudged against him, and Jake felt a surge of warmth spreading through him. But that feeling was disrupted early the next morning. A loud knock jolted him awake, and his heart pounded. Who could it be? The sun barely illuminated the room, and the knocking was insistent and harsh. With a sense of foreboding creeping in, Jake swung his legs over the side of the bed, his stomach tightening. He glanced at Charlie, who was now alert, shoulders tense. "Stay here, buddy," he whispered, rising cautiously. As he approached the door, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that whatever awaited him on the other side could change everything. Would it be good? Or would it send him spiraling back into despair? Taking a deep breath, he turned the doorknob. What was waiting for him? Jake opened the door slowly, heart racing. The bright morning light flooded in, illuminating the figure standing on the threshold. It was his neighbor, Mrs. Sullivan, her gray hair pulled tightly back, eyes wide with concern. "Jake," she exclaimed, worry etched on her face. "I'm so sorry to bother you so early, but I saw you parked outside. Is everything all right?" "Yeah, I just had a rough night," he managed, gripping the doorframe for support. Mrs. Sullivan stepped closer, her gaze flicking from Jake to Charlie, who stood beside him, tail wagging curiously. "Do you need help?" "I couldn't help but notice you looked a little off yesterday at the market," she said gently. A mix of genuine care and the kind of neighborly concern that made Jake feel exposed settled over him like a thin blanket. "I'm just figuring things out," he replied, not wanting to reveal too much. "It's just been a lot lately." Her eyes softened. "You know, Jake, it's okay to ask for help. We all go through tough patches," she said, the compassion in her tone a sharp contrast to the sternness of his father's earlier words. "Yeah, thanks," he said, the tightness in his chest easing a bit. "Charlie here has been a good distraction." He knelt and scratched the puppy's head. Charlie was a brief reprieve from reality, a reminder that joy could exist amidst struggles. Just as a hesitant smile crossed Mrs. Sullivan's lips, a loud revving sound echoed down the street. Jake's attention shifted to the end of the road, where a large truck rolled into view, its rusted sides adorned with bright letters advertising a local animal shelter. It parked right in front of his house. "I didn't know they were doing a drive today," he murmured, eyes enthralled by the sight. At the same time, he felt a pang of worry. Would they be looking for foster homes? Would he have to turn away another dog in need when he could hardly care for himself or Charlie? "Do you want to go check it out?" Mrs. Sullivan asked, sensing Jake's thoughts. Maybe, but a flicker of doubt stung him. Was he ready to invite more chaos into his life? "Why don't you bring Charlie?" she urged, her eyes brightening. "Dogs bring good luck, Jake. Plus, it's a great opportunity for some fresh air." "Okay. Let me just put on some shoes." The weight of uncertainty still hung over him, but the idea of stepping outside with Charlie and Mrs. Sullivan felt easier than facing his own fears alone. He quickly got dressed, grabbing a light jacket on the way out. Once he was outside, the sun beamed down, warm and inviting. Charlie bounced happily, oblivious to his owner's internal struggle. Jake inhaled deeply, hoping the fresh air could take away a fraction of his dread. As they approached the truck, colorful flyers fluttered in the breeze, all depicting dogs, cats, and the promise of second chances. Friendly, smiling faces greeted him from within the truck's open doors. "Come on over," a woman called out, her voice cheerful and welcoming. Jake hesitated. His heart thumped loudly in his chest, each beat echoing his doubts. Could he really take on more? Yet, as he glanced down at Charlie, who looked up with wide, trusting eyes, he felt a shift inside him. Maybe just one more, he whispered to himself, unsure if he was talking about dogs or his own acceptance of help. That he stepped forward, the first tentative move toward an open door he hadn't known he was ready to cross, but as he reached the curb, a sense of purpose ignited within him. Perhaps this was the moment he had been waiting for, a step towards redefining not just success, but happiness. What if this encounter would shape not just his day, but his entire life ahead? Jake looked at Charlie and realized something. Sometimes, the hardest doors to open lead to the most unexpected treasures. As the woman approached, Jake took a deep breath, ready for whatever was coming. Would he really find a way to embrace the chaos, or would he crumble under the pressure? The choices he was about to make could flip everything upside down. Jake stepped closer to the cheerful woman at the truck, his heart still racing. She had a wide grin, and her eyes sparkled with the kind of enthusiasm that felt contagious. It was refreshing, almost dizzying to think about how this moment could unfurl. "Hi there. I'm Sarah," she said, extending her hand, her voice warm and inviting. "We're out here looking for foster homes and forever families for some lovely animals in need." She pointed behind her, where a few dogs were playfully wriggling in their pens. "Hey, I'm Jake and this is Charlie," he said, nudging the puppy forward. Charlie wagged his tail so hard he nearly spun in circles, oblivious to the problematic thoughts swirling in Jake's mind. "Good to meet you both. What a cute little guy." Sarah crouched to greet Charlie, who eagerly leaned in for affection. The genuine connection melted a piece of Jake's hesitance away. He knew Charlie adored other dogs, and the idea of bringing another dog into their lives brought conflicting feelings. "Are you looking to adopt, or?" Sarah trailed off, her smile waiting for an answer. Jake swallowed hard. "I'm not sure. Just checking it out for now." The words felt heavy on his tongue, as if he were dragging them behind him like a worn-out shoelace. It was the truth, yet he knew the longer he stood there, the more that curiosity would bubble into something bigger. In the back of the truck, a soft whimper caught his attention. He turned to see a small, scruffy dog peering out from a crate, eyes pleading like those of a shadow searching for light. The dog was covered in dirt and had patches of matted fur, but it was the dog's spirit that called out to Jake. His heart sank. Could he possibly help again? "What about that one?" he asked, pointing at the scruffy dog. "That's Pip," Sarah replied, her voice softening. She's had a rough start but has so much love to give. She needs a home that can help her feel safe again. Jake's chest tightened. Struggling for words, he imagined Pip curled up in the tiny corner of his living room, sharing space with Charlie. Could he take on another dog when he was still so lost himself? A surge of responsibility mixed with compassion tugged at him. Do you think I could foster her? Just temporarily? The question slipped out before he could reel it back in. Sarah's face lit up. Absolutely. Fostering is a great way to help animals while figuring things out. It's a win-win. As she explained what fostering would entail, Jake found himself nodding along. Charlie sniffed the air, tail wagging, as if sensing his owner's shift. He could practically feel that first step growing into something real and meaningful. Just think, said Sarah, you'll be saving a life. It might even help you feel more connected to the world around you. Her words struck a chord. Could this be the purpose he had been longing for? The drive behind every decision that had felt stagnant? Jake looked down at Charlie, who seemed to sparkle in the sunlight, full of life and curiosity. Then he turned his gaze back to Pip, whose eyes shone with a warmth that echoed Charlie's vibrant nature. The daunting heaviness inside him lightened at the thought of providing a safe space for Pip. Pip pawed excitedly at the edge of her crate, and in that moment, Jake made a choice. Let us do it, he said, voice steady now. Before he could question himself anymore, a wave of relief washed over him. What would come next? Surely fostering Pip would be another layer added to his life's picture, the colors of uncertainty mixing with the vibrance of newfound hope, but as he filled out the fostering paperwork, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. What challenges would he face with 2 dogs? Would he be able to balance his own needs with theirs? With each scratch of the pen against paper, excitement pulsed through him, accompanied by lingering doubt. This leap could change everything. And just as quickly as his heart began to mend, the weight of responsibility loomed ahead. Could he truly welcome this life into his already packed heart and home? The questions hovered in the air like a distant storm, ready to unfold. After Jake submitted the paperwork, Sarah handed him a small booklet filled with tips for fostering. Here's everything you'll need to know, she said, her excitement palpable. Pip is so resilient. With a little time and love, she'll start to trust you. Jake nodded, already imagining Pip's timid nature evolving into her own spirited personality. Yet, as thoughts of getting to know Pip raced through his mind, a wave of uncertainty washed over him again. He had no idea what lay ahead. Charlie seems ready to have a sister, Sarah added, noticing the pup's exuberant energy. Just keep an eye on their introductions. It'll help Pip feel more at home. Right, introductions, Jake murmured, suddenly conscious of the little things he hadn't considered. Would Charlie be welcoming? Would Pip even want to engage? Taking a deep breath, he resolved to let it unfold in its own way. Sarah went on to explain how fostering would not only help Pip but offer Jake a glimpse into being a part of something bigger. It's all about patience and understanding, she said, her voice lowering to a more comforting tone. You'll find a new rhythm. As Jake drove home with Pip curled up in the crate beside Charlie, the car was filled with an unusual mix of anxious anticipation. Pip paced quietly, glancing up at Jake with uncertainty. Her matted fur and muddy paws hinted at her past. He could see shadows of a life that hadn't been easy. Entering his home felt different now. Jake barely had time to set her crate down before Charlie bounded over, tail wagging furiously. The contrast was stark. Charlie was a bundle of joy and energy, while Pip hesitated near the edge of her crate, her tiny body tensed and alert. Hey, take it easy, Charlie, Jake said softly, trying to keep the peace. Let us give her some space. But Charlie didn't know how to control himself. He trotted back and forth, trying to coax the newcomer into play. "Come on, Pip, it's okay," Jake encouraged, kneeling beside her, slowly extending his hand. She looked up, her eyes wide with caution and curiosity. For a moment, time stood still. Would Pip take that step toward trust? Jake felt a connection forming, but doubt crept back in. What if she rejected him? Or worse, what if he failed her? He needed this to work. Jake longed for the warmth of a family that felt whole. He wanted to be her safe space, just as Charlie had been for him. As evening settled in, he prepared a small dinner for them all. But Pip barely touched the food, her body racked with what could only be described as shivers of anxiety. "You'll be okay, Pip," Jake whispered, watching her from the other side of the kitchen. "You're safe now." Days turned into moments, and while they remained at a fragile balance, something inside Jake began to shift. He felt the burden of loneliness lessen, replaced with sparks of hope. Caring for Pip gave him purpose, igniting a long-dormant flame. Each sunrise brought new opportunities. Charlie became a playful mentor, coaxing Pip into exploring their backyard, sniffing every corner. Jake felt a surge of pride watching the pair. For the first time in a long time, he smiled, but just as the bonds formed, so too did new fears. Would it truly work? Jake often found himself holding his breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop. And every time he thought they were making progress, Pip would retreat, lost in her own worries. Jake stared at the hopeful faces of the dogs before him, Charlie's eagerness and Pip's tentative spirit. They needed him, and in that moment, he knew he couldn't back out now. But what would it take for Pip to trust him fully? How long before hope could completely drive out the shadows of fear? Bracing himself, Jake felt a mixture of excitement and trepidation as he prepared for the next step in this journey. After all, every moment was a choice, and every choice reshaped their lives in unexpected ways. What would happen next when the real trials began? The warmth of the sun spilled into Jake's living room as dawn broke, painting a bright new day. He awoke with a determined heart, his mind already racing with thoughts of Pip. Each day brought slight changes, small victories. Last night, Pip had ventured to the water bowl all on her own. It seemed like such a trivial act, but to Jake, it felt monumental. As he prepared breakfast, Charlie bounced around, eager to start the day. "You're a happy little guy, huh?" Jake chuckled, casting a sideways glance at the golden retriever. "Let us keep that energy up for Pip." Jake made his way to where Pip lay curled up on her bed, her eyes closed tight. She had found a safe spot under the kitchen table, visible but hidden at the same time. Carefully, he knelt beside her. "Morning, little one," he said softly, gently scratching behind her ears. Her tail gave a timid thump against the floor. Progress, he reminded himself. After breakfast, Jake felt ready to tackle a new challenge. Today would be about introducing Pip to the outside world. "What do you say, Pip? Ready for an adventure?" he asked, heart pounding with excitement and anxiety. Walking into the backyard, he opened the door and let Charlie dart out first. Watching him race across the grass renewed Jake's hope. Pip stayed inside, her body still and her eyes wide. "Hey, Pip, no pressure. Just come when you're ready." Moments passed like hours. Jake took a deep breath and sat on the top step of the porch. He felt the sun warming his back while Charlie pranced around, inviting her to join. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Pip stepped forward. One paw at a time, she ventured out. Jake held his breath, hoping she would continue. Her nose twitched, catching new scents that danced in the breeze. With each step, her confidence grew. Soon, she was sniffing the grass, taking joyful leaps that surprised even Jake. "Yes. That's it, Pip," he cheered, grinning widely as the two dogs explored the yard together. The image of them bounding through the grass played over and over in his mind. It was perfect. But just when it looked like Pip was settling in, a loud noise, a car backfiring, shattered the moment. In an instant, Pip ducked low, her body shaking as she darted back toward the haven of the porch. "Hey! Hey! It's okay," Jake called, rising quickly. He hurried to her side, crouching low, heart sinking. "I'm right here. You're okay." He reached out cautiously, hoping to soothe her fear. Charlie, sensing Pip's distress, approached slowly, tail still wagging but his body relaxed. He nosed Pip gently, as if to say he was there for her. Seeing Charlie's calm demeanor, Jake felt a flicker of hope spark anew. With the loud noise subsiding, he sat beside Pip, wrapping an arm around her quivering form. "It's just a sound. You're safe here, I promise." He took a long breath, wishing he could shield her from any fear. As Pip's tension began to ease, Jake couldn't help but reflect on how far they'd come in just 10 days. Yet the memories of her anxious retreats still haunted him. He wondered if those moments would ever fade completely or if the shadows of her past would always linger. Just then, a deep bark echoed from the street. Jake quickly turned to witness a larger dog being walked by its owner. Immediately, Pip stiffened again, her body tense. She peered over at him, eyes wide with uncertainty. "Pip, you don't have to be afraid. You're not alone in this," he whispered. But as he spoke, fear gripped him tight. Would this be another setback? He couldn't shake the feeling that failure was just around the corner, ready to pounce. Was he doing enough? He glanced down at Pip, and for the first time, he understood he would face every challenge, for her. Even if it meant clashing with his own fears, determined, he stood up, ready to defy the doubt. "Okay, Pip," he said, voice steady. "Let us work through this, together." Every ounce of love surged within him as he looked at her, ready to bridge the gap between fear and trust. What would be the next step in their shared battle against the past? Would this moment draw them closer, or push them apart? Jake knelt beside Pip, feeling her warm, quaking body against his leg. Her ears flicked back, and he could see the flicker of her heart racing beneath the fragile surface of her fur. The dog across the street barked again, deep and booming. A tense moment stretched, filled with uncertainty and fear. "Pip, listen, it's just a dog," he said calmly, watching as her eyes flicked from him to the unsettling sight outside. He could feel the heat radiate from her, anxiety coursing through her small frame like an electric current. He needed to break this cycle of fear. He reached for Charlie, who yearned for attention, his bright eyes shining up at Jake as if he understood the challenge. "Charlie, come here," Jake called softly. When his golden friend padded closer, Jake pointed to Pip. "Show her you're brave." Charlie approached Pip with a slow, easy gait, his tail wagging gently. He lowered his head, nudging Pip's with a playful energy, unearthing remnants of her instinct to play. "See, Pip? Look at him. Nothing bad is happening. We're all right here." Pip managed a tentative glance at Charlie. The corners of her mouth lifted slightly, and Jake felt hope swell in his chest. He reached out to scratch Charlie behind the ears, offering Pip an invitation. "You can trust him. We're safe." After what seemed like an eternity, Pip, driven by curiosity and Charlie's gentle persistence, edged back toward the porch. Her body remained tense, but she didn't retreat. She took a step forward, inching closer to where her canine friends stood. "That's it, girl," Jake said, heart racing with pride. "You're doing so well." Pip let out a soft whimper, testing her new limits. Jake's entire body tingled with warmth. This was hope. This was progress. Suddenly, a gust of wind whipped through the backyard, rustling the leaves of the nearby trees. For a fraction of a second, Pip froze, her muscles tightening, but Charlie didn't waver. He hopped playfully, chasing after a ball of dried leaves. Pip watched him with wide eyes, caught in the contrast of fear and intrigue. "See? It's just the wind," Jake murmured, encouraged by Charlie's antics. "You can be brave too. Just take it one step at a time." Slowly, Pip took that step. She moved past Jake, inching toward Charlie, who was basking in the sunlight, blissfully unaware of the chaos around them. A small bark escaped her throat, tentative yet hopeful. Jake's heart soared. "Yes. That's it." He applauded silently, filled with a swell of pride. Pip was joining the world again, and each move she made warmed his soul like the sun above him. They continued to explore together, and with every passing moment, the grass yielded new smells, new possibilities. With Charlie at her side, her tail began to sway cautiously. But just as Jake began to believe they might finally break through the barriers of fear, the loud crack of thunder rumbled in the distance. Instinctively, Pip spun around, terror flooding her eyes as she bolted toward the house. "No, Pip. Come back!" Jake shouted, scrambling after her, desperation surging through him like wildfire. He reached the door just as she pressed her body against the wall, searching for the safety of her hiding spot. "I'm right here," he called out, breathing heavily. "Pip, please. You don't have to be scared." Then he felt a familiar tug at his heart, a blend of fear and resolve lifting him. He crouched down near the edge of the porch and took a steadying breath. "If you stay here and face this, I promise I'll be right next to you. You're not alone." With a deep resolve, he opened the door wider, determined. They had come so far it couldn't end like this. In that moment of choice between fear and courage, what would Pip decide? Would she take a leap of faith, or would the shadows of her past claim her once more? Jake felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. He sat cross-legged on the porch, heart racing but voice steady, coaxing Pip to trust him. The sky darkened with brewing storms, but in that small space between fear and courage, there was a flicker of hope. "Pip, look at me," he urged, forcing himself to be calm. Her eyes were wide, shimmering with uncertainty. "I need you to understand that it's okay to feel scared. Just take a breath with me." He inhaled deeply, pushing his own fear aside, and watched her closely. Pip mirrored his action, albeit hesitantly, her little chest rising and falling. Suddenly, a clap of thunder shook the air. The sound reverberated through Jake's core, sending a jolt of worry into his heart. He clenched his fists, not wanting to show it. "That's just nature. It won't hurt you." As he spoke, he noticed Charlie trotting back from the yard, completely unbothered by the storm. With each passing moment, Charlie exuded an aura of confidence that was infectious. "See, even Charlie thinks it's okay," Jake said, glancing at the golden retriever. Pip turned her head with a cautious tilt, her body still pressed against the wall. It was a small step, but a step nonetheless. Jake's heart raced with renewed determination. "You're so close, Pip. Just a little more. Come here, girl," he encouraged gently. Jake held out his hand, palm up, as Charlie trotted over, nudging it with his nose. Pip watched, her head bobbing slightly as she weighed her options. Every instinct told her to run, but there was something about Jake's calm presence that drew her in. With a soft whimper, Pip took a step forward, and then another. Her legs felt shaky, but she was moving. A ripple of excitement surged through Jake. "Yes. That's right. You got this." The thunder rumbled again, and Pip faltered, hesitating momentarily, her instinct to flee kicking in. But the soft warmth of the air, mixed with the familiar scent of grass and two smiling dogs, tugged at her courage. "In no time, this will all be just a memory," Jake whispered to himself, feeling hope glimmering anew. "You're overcoming this, Pip. You're stronger than you think." Another step. Then she paused again, this time glancing over at Jake. The connection between them felt palpable, electric even. He could see her trembling, but there was fire behind the fear in her eyes. "Just a little closer," he said softly, feeling the bond they'd built break through the tension. "I'll be right here." Pip moved forward bit by bit, a brave warrior facing the storm. The thunder seemed to fade as she took her place beside Charlie. Grateful tears pricked at Jake's eyes at the sight of Pip standing next to her loyal friend, her tiny body pulsing with anxiety but also with a new spark of bravery. Just then, a single raindrop plopped down on the porch. Then another. Soon, it was a shower, and the sound of rain filled the air. Pip flinched, her instinct to retreat battling against the newfound trust. "It's okay. We're safe," Jake shouted over the drumming. "Just stay with me. You're doing so well." He could see Pip's gaze darting, caught between her fears and the strength she had begun to find. In that chaotic moment, Jake knew they were on the edge of something monumental. As raindrops slipped off the porch and danced in puddles, Jake held his breath, waiting to see what Pip would choose. Would she stay and face the storm or turn back to the fears that had trapped her for too long? And then, the moment stretched impossibly. Would she finally step into the world that waited right outside the door? Pip took a breath, her small frame quivering as the rain began to pour more heavily. With each drop, she seemed to weigh the world on her shoulders. Jake's heart ached for her, yet he felt the warmth of a quiet strength settling in. She was ready, he just knew it. "Simon, Pip," he breathed out, his voice a soft whisper amidst the thunder. "You can do it. I'm right here." Each word felt like a thread binding their growing bond stronger. The rain washed over everything, creating a symphony against the sturdy wooden porch. Charlie shifted closer, nudging Pip with his nose again. The golden retriever's nonchalance in the downpour seemed to shine a light on their little trio. She looked at him, then back at Jake, her big eyes dripping with uncertainty but holding something else too, curiosity. Pip took another step, and this time, she didn't hesitate. The storm raged around her, but she was finally moving toward Jake, focusing on the warmth of his hand and the comfort of Charlie beside her. With a shaky leap, she hopped onto the porch steps, and then a thunderous crash echoed above, almost as if the sky had split itself in two. Pip froze, her instincts screaming for her to run. Jake felt his heart stop as well. "Pip." He reached out, his palms steady. "Look at me. I'm right here. We're okay." Something shifted in Pip. There was a flicker of understanding in her beady eyes, a realization that maybe the thunder wasn't the monster it seemed to be. Slowly, ever so slowly, she took another step forward and then another, until she stood beside Jake, quivering but resolute. It was a monumental moment, a quiet declaration that fear wasn't going to define her anymore. A wave of relief washed over Jake, and for the first time, he let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. "Yes. That's it, Pip. You did it." He could hardly contain his emotions. Joy bubbled beneath the surface, pushing out the lingering worries. The rain still fell, but in the midst of the storm, something miraculous happened. Pip turned toward Charlie, who wagged his tail enthusiastically, completely unperturbed by the weather. There was a lightness in the air now, an energy that surged through Jake. He moved to the side to let Pip see the wide world unfolding before them. "What do you think?" he asked her softly, his voice firm yet gentle. "Do you want to play in the rain?" Pip perked up, glancing back at him with a hint of cautious excitement. Then, as if encouraged by that electric connection between them, she took off, bounding into the fresh puddles that had begun to form at the edge of the porch. Splash! A little spray of water, then another, and soon she was dancing through the rain as if it were the most joyous celebration. Jake laughed, unable to contain the joy swelling in his chest. "See? It's not so scary after all." Charlie joined in, bounding after Pip, their laughter echoing in tandem with the rain, but in the back of his mind, Jake knew this breakthrough was only the beginning. They faced fear together, but what other uncertainties lay ahead? He felt the pinch of doubt creep in, a hesitant reminder that they weren't out of the woods just yet. As they splashed and played, Jake understood there would be more storms to confront, both outside and within. And each time, they would need to stand side by side, ready to fight whatever came their way. Just then, the clouds began to break, revealing a single ray of sunlight that broke through the gray. It seemed to promise hope and healing, but also raised a question: how would they handle the challenges that were still waiting just beyond the horizon? Jake's heart raced again. What was coming next? Would they truly embrace the changes ahead, or would new fears rise and challenge their journey together? As the rain slowed to a gentle drizzle, the world around Jake brightened. Sunlight sliced through the gray, illuminating the yard in a golden hue. Pip and Charlie reveled in the puddles, soaked and joyful, their laughter mingling with the soft pitter-patter of the fading storm. Every splash echoed like a declaration of newfound courage, and Jake felt the warmth of hope coursing through him. "Look at you two!" Jake exclaimed, his voice brimming with pride. Tears blurred his vision as Pip danced around, her confidence growing with every playful leap. Each tail wag, each bark was evidence of her blossoming spirit. This was the transformation he had dreamed for her, no longer a frightened soul hidden away, but a brave heart stepping boldly into her new life. "You're doing it, Pip," he cheered, kneeling down and spreading his arms wide. As if sensing his joy, Pip spun around and bounded towards him, front paws landing gently against his thighs. That simple touch sent a wave of warmth through Jake. Here they were, two souls entwined in a dance of mutual healing. Minutes passed like seconds, each moment a celebration of triumph over adversity. Jake's own heart felt lighter as he watched Charlie enthusiastically buddy up with Pip. The chasm of fear slowly closed, and instead of trembling apprehensively, Pip joined in play, her whimpers transformed into happy barks. "We're a family now," Jake whispered to himself, a stir of resolve blooming deep within him. And families stick together, no matter what. With the sun shining brightly, their surroundings began to come alive again. Birds chirped overhead, and the sweet scent of damp earth filled the air, a reminder that storms could bring new life. Jake felt a surge of gratitude, recognizing how pivotal these moments were. Here he wasn't just saving a dog, he was rediscovering himself through Pip and Charlie. That evening, amidst a sea of contentment, Jake prepared a little dinner for his three-person family. He watched with a smile as Pip and Charlie gobbled down their food, tails wagging like wind-up toys. The quietness of the night settled gently around them. It was a far cry from the chaos of a week ago when his world felt heavy with struggle and uncertainty. Over dinner, Jake decided it was time to put together another list, this one filled with aspirations that opened his heart, reflecting on how the past 10 days had reshaped his views on success and happiness. "Let's see," he said aloud as he scribbled away, "be brave, be a better owner, find a job that brings joy." The excitement bubbled within him. He could breathe now. As the last line came to completion, a newfound clarity washed over him. This journey was never solely about him or just about Pip, it was about embracing challenges, sharing love, and building a future filled with meaning. He felt ready to face whatever storm might come next, both for himself and for the dogs who stood by him, loyal and loving. The quiet of the night enveloped them as Jake settled into the sofa, Pip resting comfortably beside him while Charlie lay sprawled at their feet. Together, they formed an unbreakable bond. Their snuggles were interludes of laughter and love, each gentle snore from the dogs a reminder of how far they had come. Jake felt his heart swell with pride and a deep sense of purpose. They had transformed, and in some cosmic way, they were now healing one another. He threw an arm around Pip, who leaned in, savoring the comfort. "How about tomorrow, we take a big walk to the park?" Jake suggested, already feeling a surge of excitement at the thought of letting Pip explore the wider world, knowing her security had only just begun to flourish. As he waited for her response, he saw the spark of bravery in her eyes, mirroring a bit of his own. The once frightened dog now looked ready to embrace everything waiting for her beyond the doorstep, and with that heartwarming moment shared, they settled in for a night of peace, dreaming of a future brightened by companionship, courage, and the relentless pursuit of joy. Jake breathed a sigh of contentment, understanding that life, like the weather, would have its storms. Yet, no matter what came next, he was ready. He had lived through darkness and had emerged lighter, driven by love and hope for himself and his little family. True strength, he realized, wasn't just about standing tall. It was about letting their hearts be vulnerable, open to the beautiful possibilities that lay ahead. This was the beginning not just for Pip, but for him as well. If you believe in the power of transformation and the bonds we create along the way, then you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support and let the world know how these stories are impacting lives. Leave a like now to help feed the algorithm and spread this positivity further. Comment below your feelings about this heartwarming ending. Your words mean the world to us. And for the love of furry friends everywhere, share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to help spread hope.